story, but Srila Prabhupada wasn't that impressed with fireworks. When we got back, Srila Prabhupada said the best thing was when we were driving by, that all of those young boys and girls, all those men and women were chanting Hare Krishna. He said, even if they do it in jest, even if they think they're making fun of it, it doesn't matter. He says their spiritual life has begun and they have eternal benefit from the chanting of the holy name. You know, so that was really nice. Another couple of quick things that were there interesting. And going back to the idea how Srila Prabhupada seemed to always know what was going on in some very sort of deep spiritual way, and also just in even little ways. Prabhupada was walking around, and there was a transformer, as there always is, on a pole, electrical pole, and there was a little red light blinking. This is 40 feet up on a pole, electrical pole, a little tiny red light. And Prabhupada said, "Why is that red light blinking?" "You don't know." You know? He said, "You should find out." Well, you know, things go on, it's a big visit, everyone forgot about it. So about 2 months later, a big Janmashtami festival where we've got thousands of things plugged in, the transformer blew up and the lights went out. Somehow Srila Prabhupada knew that, and he said, "You should look into what's wrong there." And sure enough, the transformer blew up. These were the kind of things that Prabhupada noticed detail. He was one of the most detail-oriented people I've ever seen in my life. Nothing escaped. Everything. We have these chandeliers, actually much more ornate than these. I'm not saying that as a negative, I'm just saying that's part of the story. These were very ornate chandeliers that our temple president spent $5,000 on. He spent a huge amount of money trying to impress Srila Prabhupada before he came. And what we finally learned after a few years that spending money wasn't the way to impress Srila Prabhupada. It's our devotional service, distributing books, preaching. These are the things that Prabhupada really appreciated. So, and we went into pretty bad debt for a long time. It took us to get out of debt. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada sits down, looks up the chandeliers, said, "How much did those cost?" Said, "Oh, $5,000. He said, "Prabhupada, please." Because it's for the deities. It's the chandelier, the temple room. It's not pretty much personal sense gratification. And Prabhupada said, "Be very careful how you spend Krishna's money." So it's like, he always knew these things, and somehow he knew that we were probably overspending and going into debt. And Prabhupada didn't want to see that. He wanted us to see us, pushing on the mission of the temple, not getting deeply in debt, but having a lot of fancy things around. And so he was always giving us those kind of instructions, and at the time they seemed like all just little small remarks, but in retrospect you realize that everything Srila Prabhupada said to us was very, very meaningful. It was full of depth, it was full of realization, and even full of practical knowledge and understanding that we could take with us. And often many people as managers, you think about many of these things that Prabhupada said and what he did. So anyway, very interesting. I'll finish with one last story. I'm probably over my time. Other people want to speak. But when Srila Prabhupada was there in Potomac, he had a darshan. It was in the evening. I was there. And he had the BI, the Bhaktivedanta Institute, devotees were there. Srup Damodar, he wasn't Maharaj at the time, but Srup Damodar Brahmachari. Who was the mathematician? Sadhgupta was there. And 2 or 3 of them were there like that. Trudy Karma was with them then. And this was before, the little book, Life Comes from Life. This was before it was printed. This was kind of like they had their first draft done. And they were presenting to Srila Prabhupada to see if he approved of it. They were basically in the right direction. And so Srup Damodar Maharaj now was presenting, and he was telling the difference between life and matter. It seemed like fairly simple presentation. This is consciousness, living things. These are things without consciousness, not living. He said, like a stone is not living. Prabhupada was, "Oh, sometimes stones are alive." I have to go back and rewrite that chapter. And they said, "Oh, really?" And they talked about it. Prabhupada gave the example of crystals. How crystals shows the symptoms of life. That it grows, and it goes through the 6 processes, 6 transformations that all living things do. And they go, "Oh," and Prabhupada said, "Mountains? Well, they're alive sometimes." I said, "Mountain?" He said, "But you just pick up a rock on the road, it doesn't seem to be alive." He goes, "No, it's dead now." What? So they're trying to get it all. He said, "Look, so a tree in the forest, it's alive. It dies, it falls over, and there's a stump. The life is gone now. Simple. Same thing. Stone was alive at one time, now it's not alive. You know, it was so simple, but yet it's something we never thought of it that way. You know? And, you know, there were just so many of these things that were like, I guess one of the things that was so exciting when Srila Prabhupada was with us is that we were getting this kind of new knowledge every day practically. Yes, the Malati had mentioned that there was what, only the one Srimad Bhagavatam? When you were, now, by the time I came, I think we were up to Canto 3, maybe, or 2. But it's like so, every couple months a new Bhagavatam is coming out. Can you imagine that? We'd never seen the Bhagavatams, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, these incredible literatures which we take for granted now were brand new to us. And Srila Prabhupada was giving to us with his wonderful translations and commentaries in a way that we could understand it. That he would put it in ways that made sense to us, that we could apply. And so we were learning these fascinating things about everything from the nature of the cosmos to deep philosophical considerations, like practically every month. It was a constant process of new knowledge, of revelation, of awakening for all of us. And Prabhupada really made Krishna consciousness alive and exciting, new and fresh. And so I had 5 years. Some of the other devotees were fortunate enough to have maybe 10 years with Srila Prabhupada's presence. But, you know, it's like, and you were mentioning how it was such a wake-up call, such a shock when Prabhupada said he might leave his body. I have to be honest with you, I never thought Srila Prabhupada would ever leave his body, would ever be gone until November 1977. I actually did not believe that Srila Prabhupada would ever not be with us up until the day I heard that he left his body. We just didn't believe it.
I always heard that devotees used to tell me that Prabhupada was going to live 100 years.
Well, we all believed, somehow we all believed that, I think.
Yeah, it was just,
we wanted to believe that. I think we have things an urban legend, something that somebody creates and you want to believe.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we thought Prabhupada would be with us a long time, another generation or so. We just didn't believe that he'd ever not be with us. But now in retrospect, we understand what he gave us during those few short years was so incredible, so valuable. And I am constantly thankful for those devotees who had the intelligence to tape his lectures, you know, to photo, you know, like Yadavara, film, you know, and we have so much of Srila Prabhupada still with us. And Siddhanta Prabhu's wonderful series of Prabhupada remembrances where he's recorded so many devotees so that it's almost like Prabhupada's still with us. Because we really do have his body totally, and we even have some of his bhakti through this recorded work of his. So we're very, very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada is still with us, and even after everybody was sitting up here, after we're all gone, which is not going to be so many years, Prabhupada will still be with us. He'll be with us, he'll be guiding and leading this movement for thousands of years to come, you know, as the preeminent Shiksha Guru, you know, as the Jagat Guru for the whole world for generations and generations. So we just need to follow closely, tightly to his lotus feet. Jai Prabhupada.
So we're also fortunate today to have in our presence this very sponge Radha Prabhu. And I believe this is your first person. I know it's your wife. So he and his wife, we were just speaking in Philadelphia. We were there with Dr. Tuckmar. So this is his first Manihati festival. But I've had the great pleasure of knowing him for many, many years in Atlanta. Yeah, well, in India. We did the first one in India, actually. I'll tell that story one time. But he has so much depth of understanding of Prabhupada's vision in Mayapur, and we hope you can share some of those thoughts with us. And at the end, I'm going to introduce, there are a lot of Prabhupada disciples that unfortunately we don't have enough chairs to see everybody here, but I'll mention as many names as I have at the end. Please go ahead.
Mayapur. I was thinking I was thinking things to talk about and things that came up more in relation to other places, but Srila Prabhupada. Well, just a couple of things that just came to me while other people were talking. Because some devotees here were talking about Prabhupada's practical Oh, yes. You were talking about how the water flew out. So maybe Gokul Raj, I don't know if you were there when Prabhupada arrived in JFK one time, and we were gathered there, and they'd given a room for the press and for us to meet. And so then we offered Srila Prabhupada arti, and then there was the incense. And the devotee was looking around, now what do I do with this incense? And Srila Prabhupada pointed, and there was this tray of watermelon. So he pointed, and I think he actually did. He took the incense and put it in, stuck it in a piece of watermelon, and that was the incense holder. And then another devotee was talking, Gokul Ranjan, you were talking about how Srila Prabhupada didn't display his emotions. But sometimes he did. And sometimes it was, like you said, very ecstatic. I had one personal experience where, and you mentioned videos. I was fortunate to be able to video Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. So this was 1973. No, when was New Vrindavan Bhagavad Dharma discourse? No, 72. So this must have been in early 72. It was I think it was after, or no, it was about the same time as the installation of Radha Govinda. So, by the grace of my dear mother, who gave a large donation, she was somehow very impressed by our movement. She's not a devotee, but she was impressed. And I think she was impressed that I was saved by this movement of Krishna consciousness. I have to give that credit to Jagadish, who I had cut off ties with my parents. They didn't know where I was. And when I joined the temple, he said that was no good. A devotee is never causes unnecessary pain to any living entity, especially their parents. So you call them up, tell them where you are. So that, yes, Krishna consciousness not only saved me, but it saved my relationship with my parents. So anyway, they were very kind. So I got this, and today you can probably take a much better quality video on this little thing here. But in those days, it was a big contraption. It was this camera about the size of his camera there, but the recording was on a reel-to-reel tape deck, which is about this big. So anyway, I had this equipment, and I was able to video Srila Prabhupada when he came to New York. And it was just wonderful to be able to do that, because unlike the still cameras, which make noise, right? And many of you may have understood that Srila Prabhupada didn't like the kick of the, or a flash, and he didn't like any of that. So the photographers, they were restricted. They could take 1, 2, 3 pictures. But this video camera was completely silent. So I could just be there behind the camera. And I ignored any rules of videography, and I would zoom in and just look at Prabhupada. Anyway, so after Prabhupada's lecture, I brought the whole equipment in, and I set it up in his room in New York, and so that he could see himself on television. So I remember this was one of those occasions where Srila Prabhupada took over the kirtan. Often, most of the time after he spoke, there would be kirtan. And in this occasion, there was kirtan, and I think Vishnu John might have been leading the kirtan. But at some point, Srila Prabhupada just began leading the kirtan. He would do that sometimes. and just took over leading the kirtan. He was leading the kirtan. It was an ecstatic kirtan, of course. So then Srila Prabhupada is watching this video, and then it comes to the part where he's leading the kirtan, and he's watching himself leading the kirtan, and he's clapping along while he's watching himself leading the kirtan, and you could see that he had no conception. He was very big, broad smile, but it was not like he was an ego thing. You could perceive that he was just enjoying this kirtan. It was a nice kirtan. He was enjoying it. So that kind of childish, like, the emotions that Srila Prabhupada displayed had this big range. And he rarely displayed that deep, deep ecstatic emotion. He didn't, like others here have commented, he didn't want to be seen as a cheap, or people would perceive ecstatic emotion in a cheap way. He came from Bengal, and any of you who have visited West Bengal or known the Bengali culture, there is often a display of tears and emotion and crying and weeping and rolling on the ground and all kinds of things, but without actually any substance. Someone else could confirm now that some devotee asked Srila Prabhupada what to do when you see some devotee, pilgrim comes to the temple rolling on the ground and crying. Should we honor this devotee? Well, you can give them a little kick and see what happens. If they stay in this condition, then yes. But if they take a, then you know it's just a show.
If they stay in that condition,
Then you pay your obeisances. Then yes, this is a real devotee. But if not, it is just a show. So Srila Prabhupada was very careful about that. But then he had his serious, side, but he also had this childish, young, youthful side, and adventurous side, and glint of little pleasure in the world. He wanted to. He could see and relate the world to Krishna in such a way that he took pleasure in Krishna's presence in everything. So that was a wonderful experience of Srila Prabhupada's expression of his emotions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I just have a request from Amiyam, who he wants to share something about Gornitai. You will.
This is also celebrating Chaitanya's 40th anniversary, and we're speaking about Srila Prabhupada. Somehow or other, I joined Krishna Consciousness in 1973, and so as soon as I got Brahmin initiation, I became Lord Chaitanya's main pujari in Los Angeles, and as you were saying, Lord Chaitanya at that time in Los Angeles was paper mache, and they hadn't gotten to work with me. So at the time, I became Lord Chaitanya's pujari. I actually going back to the early 1970s, before I became a devotee and I got the Radha Krishna temple up, I saw the picture of the Radha Krishna on the back, and one of the cover on the back, whichever. And I thought they were small, ceramic porcelain. So I thought they must be Prabhupada's personal, statues of Krishna that he brought with him. So I had this desire that I want to dress them for Prabhupada. I didn't know they had anything like dressing deities. I thought, I want to dress these Prabhupada. And I saw they had flowers, and I thought, yeah, I'd like to make some flowers. So I had that desire, and I thought, what kind of desire is that? To dress little figurines.
Yeah.
I was a young man, you know, I thought that's kind of a strange desire. But then I joined the temple and I saw the deities in Los Angeles, and the devotee took me in and they opened the curtain. I saw, my God, they're so huge. And he was telling me how devotees dress, and so I always wanted to dress. And anyway, so I got Brahmin initiation, I started dressing Gaura. And at the time, Lord Chaitanya was dressed very simply. They just put on the cloth, at least in Los Angeles, they just, like the chatters for Rukmini Dorcas, for Krishna, they were pinned up, and everything was, you know, decorated nicely. And Gaura just had them straight down. Their cloth was just hanging straight down, and so I started pinning everything up and making them, decorating them. And then they were making the outfits for new outfits. So I said, I want a turban for Lord Chaitanya, and I want the outfits to be as opulent as the Rukmini, Gaura and Jagannath. And the people who were making the outfits, they agreed, they made them, and I wanted more jewelry for Gaura. So I started dressing them more opulently. And then when some of the pujaris for Rukmini Dorcas, they became a little jealous. They were thinking, you know, that Lord Chaitanya was very renounced. He was sannyasi, he was renounced. I shouldn't be decorating him so opulently. So I don't know why I had that desire to do that, but so Srila Prabhupada came his next visit. And it must have been in 70, later in 75 or early 76, and I wasn't at that meeting, but they had a pujaris meeting with Srila Prabhupada, because I had darshan with Srila Prabhupada with the faith devotees, with the dogs and the devotees, so I didn't get to go on the darshan for the deities, but then some of the pujaris started complaining about how I was dressing Gaura. And they were asking, is this proper or not? And Prabhupada said, that Lord Chaitanya, you must dress them like a princess, like a prince, you know, and he approved of it. So, so that was what I wanted to say about this. Since I didn't, Prabhupada approved of decorating them nicely. So I had, there was one other thing I might want to say about deity worship. This is a story that took place in 74 or 75, and Prabhupada, it must have been 74, and Prabhupada came to Los Angeles, and I had greeted him at the airport the time before he came, but this time there were things to do at the temple, so some devotees asked me to stay back, and I was disappointed I didn't get to see and greet Prabhupada at the airport, but when he came in the temple room, it was the old temple room in Los Angeles, where the museum is now. And so when he came in, I was up by the deities. And so Prabhupada came in, he offered, he went to Gaura first, and then I was standing by Rukmini Dorcas, and all the devotees came in. It was a big kirtan. It was, you know, everyone was pushing up to see Prabhupada. And so when, after Prabhupada took Charnamrita and he was standing before Rukmini Dorcas, I got pushed up right next to Prabhupada. And you know, I was not like this because everyone was pushing in, and I could hear Prabhupada speaking, and I don't think anyone else could. And Prabhupada was praying to the deities, and he was calling, it was Rukmini Dorcas, but he was calling them Radha Madhava. And he said, I see you are decorated so nicely. He said, are they dressing you like this every day? Wow. He was speaking to them. And then Prabhupada would nod his head. He was hearing them. So Tamahar said that Prabhupada seemed to understand things. It seemed like mystic power. I actually saw him speaking with Krishna. And then he nodded his head and said, oh, very good, very good. And then he said, how are they feeding? Wow. How is the food? Oh, very nice. Very And then he gave the arrival address. And he spoke about how the deities were being dressed nicely, how they were being fed nicely. He said, if you, those devotees are doing this, said, you just continue doing this for the rest of your life, you will go back like that. I know there's other devotees who are senior than I am.
Now we're fortunate that His Holiness Prabhupada Maharaj is going to be speaking for a few moments. Normally he's in the kitchen to the last minute, but he's not able to do that now. But we'd like to share some thoughts about Srila Prabhupada. He's right there. I'm not sure what we're doing. Are you coming at this moment? Jai. Hare Krishna. All right, here we go. A second. Just before he speaks, I just want, a lot of you may not know that this festival, the way in which we're doing this festival, was actually the vision of Prabhupada Maharaj. Because we've been known as Panyati Dham from 1974 or so. And we were offering cheap price, but we didn't have any idea of the actual Panyati. We did the first festival there in 1976. But when Maharaj became our GBC, and he explained to us, he said, "You don't know what is Panyati?" We went, "Not really." He explained the dynamics of what the Panyati festival should be. And from that moment we started, he specifically said, it should be a 3-day festival with various lectures and kirtan and this and that. And then his mother came later on and she started the whole auction process. So all of this has come from Jayavata Maharaj and his mother's love and appreciation for Panyati. So let's give him a very big welcome.
Since I am coming in cold.
Someone could give me something to where I could start.
Someone could give me where I could start.
You want to know where to start? From the beginning. Well, maybe from your beginning of you coming to Atlanta and how you became inspired to inspire us. What inspired you about the Atlanta Temple?
I was fortunate
to visit
Panihati
2 times with Srila Prabhupada.
2 times with Srila Prabhupada.
And many times apart from that.
And many times apart from that.
One time Prabhupada expressed a desire.
One time Srila Prabhupada expressed a desire.
Wanted to see Panihati Dham.
In order to see Panihati Dham.
He said that this is one of the eternal places of Lord Chaitanya.
He said that this is one of the eternal places of Lord Chaitanya.
That's why it's called a Dham.
That's why it's called a Dham.
At the time,
so at the time,
we saw the tree.
When he saw the tree,
where Lord Nityananda was seated on.
Where Lord Nityananda was seated under.
There was a kind of we call that a knot on your kirtan hall.
And there was a kirtan hall.
Which was in front of the tree.
Which was in front of the tree. So Prabhupada said,
we should have a boat service.
We should have a boat service.
From
Calcutta to Panihati and then to Mayapur.
And along the way, people can stop at Panihati.
And along the way, people can stop at Panihati.
And take a flat rice breakfast.
And take a flat rice breakfast. Haribo.
He said that where the kirtan hall was.
Where the kirtan hall was.
He could build a temple over it.
We could build a temple over it.
So that kirtan hall and the public access would not be disturbed.
so that the kirtan hall and public access would not be disturbed,
That the temple would be above.
and that the temple would be above.
So Prabhupada, he always wanted that there should be some permanent ISKCON presence.
So Prabhupada wanted that there should always be some permanent ISKCON presence
At Panayati
at Panihati Dham.
and then we went to see the Prabhupada house.
Then he went to see Raghava Pandit's house.
On the way in the corner,
On the way in the corner,
there was a small temple,
there was a small temple,
and Ujjara came out,
and the Pujari came out
gave a Sharyam Shila to Shila,
and gave a Shaligram Shila to Srila Prabhupada.
and as far as I know,
And as far as I know,
this was the first Sharyam in India.
this was the first Shaligram in ISKCON.
Prabhupada personally showed how to decorate the Sharyam,
Prabhupada personally showed how to decorate the Shaligram,
how to draw the eyes,
how to draw the eyes, the smile.
Then he went to the I took the Sharyam back to my book.
So I took the Shaligram back to my.
He
took the Shaligram back to Mayapur.
and we went to the house of Raghava.
And we went to the house of Raghava Pandit.
And the house was old and dilapidated.
And the house was old and dilapidated.
So I said, we probably have to redo the house.
So I said, he said, we probably have to redo the house.
We should take a photo.
But we should take a photo.
At this spot,
That at this spot,
there was an ancient temple.
there was an ancient temple.
And historically, it existed.
And historically, it existed.
How I want to preserve the historical importance of that place.
Prabhupada wanted to preserve the historical importance of the place.
There's a special plant
There is a special plant
that I say was there since the time of Lord Chaitanya.
that they say has been there since the time of Lord Chaitanya.
And Lord Nityananda used to dance under that plant.
And Lord Nityananda used to dance under that plant.
So Prabhupada saw all these things.
So Prabhupada saw all of these things.
Also just opposite the banyan tree,
Also just opposite the banyan tree,
there was another temple.
there was another temple.
And there was Krishna Balaram Devi.
And there was a Krishna Balaram deity.
And the Pujaris and also came out.
And the Pujaris and house owners came out.
And they welcomed Prabhupada.
And they welcomed Srila Prabhupada.
It was a very event-filled visit.
It was a very eventful visit.
At that time,
At that time,
the local state government was Congress.
the local state congress.
Local state government was Congress.
Local state or the local state government was Congress.
And the Congress, MLA, member of the Legislative Assembly,
And Congress, MLA, is a member of society. Legislative society.
member of the Legislative
A member of,
Assembly.
a member of the Legislative Assembly.
The Indians have been here recently.
The Indians have been here recently.
Who have been here?
Who have been here?
Don't know what the MLA is.
You will know what happened.
I don't know what the MLA is.
You will know what the MLA is.
Call them in the States, state congressmen.
They call them in the States state congressmen.
There they call them MLAs.
There they call them MLAs. Now,
They are, no, there they call Indians.
there they call them MLAs.
So he approached Prabhupada and said that he would give his properties to do what Prabhupada wanted.
So he approached Srila Prabhupada and told him he would give him his properties to do whatever he wanted.
His name was Chakravarti.
His name was Chakravarti.
And then a second time with Prabhupada, he had explained what he wanted to do to the MLA.
Then he went a second time and Srila Prabhupada explained what he wanted to do with the MLA.
So, with that I can understand that Harinati was a very important place.
With that, I can understand that Panihati was a very important place.
That Prabhupada was having so many ideas how to realize Panihati.
That Prabhupada was having so many ideas on how to utilize Panihati Dham.
So, of course, after that,
the communist government came to power.
The communist government came to power
For about 30 years.
for about 30 years.
And they are not interested to help us.
And they were not interested to have us,
Help us.
help us.
That's another story.
But that's another story.
When I came here,
When I came here,
for the first I came as a visitor.
of course, I first came as a visitor.
I was invited by Das Goswami,
I was invited by Hridayananda Das Goswami
and also by Balavanta and Rupa.
and also by Balavanta and Rupanuga Prabhu.
So in those days, I was a zonal acharya.
So in those days, I was a zonal acharya
Something like that.
or something like that.
Later on, I became a DBC.
Later on, I became a GBC.
Now we have a Mahaprabhu.
Now we have Tumahara Prabhu.
And I was responsible for the Southeast USA except Florida.
And I was responsible for the Southeast USA except Florida.
That was
Louisiana, Mississippi,
That was Louisiana, Mississippi,
Alabama,
Alabama,
Georgia,
Georgia,
Carolinas,
the Carolinas,
Tennessee,
Tennessee.
Illinois.
Everybody.
Oh, no, that's Illinois.
That was it.
So, I came to the temple
So when I came to this temple
as a guest.
as a guest,
There was a sign in front,
there was a sign in front,
building for sale,
building for sale.
and I was surprised. At that time, it was the president,
And I was surprised. At the time, Guru-gaurango Peru was president.
I asked him,
I asked him,
why the sign in place?
why is there a sign in front of the place? Why are you selling this place?
This is a place I visited.
This is a place that Prabhupada visited.
It's so few places in the world
There are so few places in the world
that he visited.
that he visited.
And here you have all those rooms,
And here you have Prabhupada's rooms,
the Asasan,
his Vyasa-san,
so many relics of Prabhupada.
so many relics of Prabhupada.
And he said, well, I don't really want to sell it.
And he said, I don't really want to sell it,
But the GBC,
but the GBC,
he wants to put everything right to the farm.
he wants to put everything at Murari Sevak Farm.
I agree. I agree. Everything should be in the right. Someday.
Oh, we did a foundation stone, right?
We laid a foundation stone at Murari.
So, we need to develop it also.
We need to develop that also.
Now, I figured out that
And now our dear godbrother,
Gadi Prabhu, he is overseeing that.
Gadi Prabhu is overseeing that.
And somehow,
Somehow,
we kept this place.
we kept this place.
And I was asked
And I was asked
about the Panihati festival.
about the Panihati festival.
I had some first-hand experience.
So I had some first-hand experience.
Because the problem went there.
Prabhupada went there.
In 1 year, taught, let's distribute Shiradahi
One,
Panihati.
1 year he thought, let's distribute Shiradahi at Panihati.
I
I thought.
and so we had our jolly boat.
And so we had our
Jolly boat. Jolly boat.
jolly boat.
Father called it jolly boat.
Jelly boat.
Because everybody who rides it feels very jolly.
Because everyone who rides it becomes jolly.
So we had Nitai Gaur
We had Nitai Gaur
on the jolly boat.
on the jolly boat.
We pulled up to the banyan tree of Lord Nityananda.
We pulled up to the banyan tree of Lord Nityananda.
Then we brought them on the land.
And brought them on the land.
Came up there on palanquin.
We brought him on a palanquin.
And there was a kind of singer.
And there was a kind of singer.
And when he saw Nitai Gaur,
And when he saw Nitai Gaur,
he began to compose a ballad.
he began to compose a ballad.
Nitai Gautami Hati Asajay Asajay.
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 Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur.
Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur.
Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur. Nitai Gautami Hati, Nitai Gautami Hati.
Nitai Gautami Hati, Nitai Gautami Hati.
Well, that was very exciting.
So that was very exciting.
And then we didn't know what to expect.
We didn't know what to expect
At the banyan tree,
at the banyan tree.
there were Brahmins,
There were Brahmins,
and they had their sights.
and they had their sights.
So people would bring out their pots,
So people would bring out their pots
they offer them,
and would offer them.
little darshan,
Take a little dakshin
and like of the shop.
and give back the prasad.
So we put down the Nagor.
So we put down Nitai Gaur.
They wanted to have people there,
They wanted to have people there,
but there was nothing they could do.
but there was nothing they could do.
They said, this year okay, but next year find your own place. Find your own place.
They said this year is okay, but next year find your own place.
And then we wanted to distribute
But then we wanted to distribute
all the Chirandai was in trucks,
all the Chiradori was in trucks,
and more than 200,000 people.
there's more than 200,000 people.
The roads were packed.
The roads were packed.
And then people everywhere, people.
There's people.
I walked over to where the truck was.
I walked over to where the truck was,
The police stopped.
and the police stopped.
Said, no truck is in here.
They said no truck is going here.
But it was all people.
I looked and I saw only people.
How do you get the Chirandai fruits from here to the tree?
How to get the Chiradori and the fruits from here to the tree.
And it was about 300 or 400 meters, 3.5 kilometers,
What was it?
300 or 400 meters.
In 300 or 400 meters.
So while we were meditating what to do,
So while we were meditating what to do,
suddenly a rain cloud came overhead.
suddenly a rain cloud came overhead.
And then there was a sun rain.
And then there was a sudden rain.
All the people ran from the road.
And all the
The road opened up.
the road opened up.
They said, get up, come on, take the chair, take the yogurt, run.
Take the chair, take the yogurt, run.
And the devotees running with the jar,
So the devotees were running with the jira.
got over to their tree,
They came over to the tree,
Rain stopped.
and the rain stopped.
So to the crowd, they walked to the back.
So through the crowd,
They walked to the back.
they walked their way back.
And they had taken half the lorry, half the truck.
And they had taken half the truck.
When they got back,
When they got back,
there was suddenly another rain cloud.
there was suddenly another rain cloud.
And rain. All the people ran off the road.
And all the people ran off the road.
Go, 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 go. So they ran with pots, bags,
So they ran with pots and bags.
got all the provisions for that tree.
And they got all the provisions to the tree.
Okay. Thank you, India.
Thank you, Indra.
Oh, thank you, Indra.
Now we got all the Chiradoni fruits.
Now we had all the Chiradani fruits.
How to distribute
How to distribute
for 200,000 people.
to 200,000 people.
So we mixed it up
So we mixed it up,
in the pots,
put it in the pots,
all of it in Daigor,
held it to Nitaigor,
and got this called Malsabo with parts of Chira.
and then we had Malsabo with a lot of chilla.
So one devotee thought, oh God, is wrong this is.
So one devotee thought, I'll go and distribute it.
And he walked in the crowd,
And he walked in the crowd,
and
giving out,
suddenly he saw like 1,000 hands
and suddenly he saw 1,000 hands
pushing him down.
pushing him down.
He disappeared. Swallowed by the ocean.
Swallowed by the ocean.
And he was gone.
And he was gone.
And he crawled out of someone's legs.
Then he crawled out from someone's legs.
And this is not the way.
He said, this is not the way.
His shirt ripped.
His shirt ripped.
And another person, he had an idea. I know how to do it.
Another person had an idea. I know how to do it.
He crawled up the tree.
He crawled up the tree.
People like birds.
And people like birds,
Are reaching up.
they were reaching up.
And
And he was giving out.
how many you'll give?
And how many would he give?
It reminds you of Lord Chaitanya said,
It reminds you of what Lord Chaitanya said.
I'm a gardener and the tree.
I'm a gardener and the tree.
When you give the fruit of love of Krishna.
I want to give the fruit of love of Krishna.
But if I do it alone,
But if I do it alone,
oh yeah, you won't get it.
who would get it, who would not get it?
All in the abusing. So, anyway, somehow that year, we managed.
Somehow that year we managed.
The next year, subsequent years, yeah, bamboo, barricades, and carrying system.
The next year and the subsequent years, we had bamboo, barricades, and a queue system.
Sometimes Bhakti and Nityananda Swami was there.
And sometimes Bhakti Nityananda Swami was here, there.
Sometimes Bhakti Church Swami.
Sometimes Bhakti Chara Swami.
sometimes me.
sometimes me.
But even in the rain, there was mud on the ground.
Even when it rained, there was mud on the ground.
People were so fired up.
People were so fired up.
They rolled in the mud.
They rolled in the mud.
They just chanted, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur.
They were chanting, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur.
I haven't seen that yet in Nilkani.
I haven't seen that yet in New Panyati.
But anything can happen.
But anything can happen.
Prabhupada said that he wanted to make places dedicated to Lord Krishna's pastime.
So Prabhupada said that he wanted to make places dedicated to Lord Krishna's pastimes.
So here, no Panyati seemed like an ideal place.
So here at New Panihati seems like an ideal place.
But no Panyati has its theme. No Panyati has its theme.
Because New Panihati has its theme.
And has its place of the king.
And it has its place where Prabhupada came.
So that's my background.
So that's my background.
But I was thinking that since this is America,
Since this is America,
brother always said that Americans should do something or should do something better.
Prabhupada said that Americans should do something better.
So there they have mangoes and bananas,
There they have mangoes and bananas,
chira,
chita,
lychees.
lychees.
Here,
But here
local fruits,
we have
local fruits.
local fruits,
We have imported fruits.
imported fruits.
We have dried fruits.
We have dried fruits.
I thought
So I thought
we should do something special.
we should do something special.
So we made 18 flavors.
So we made 18 flavors.
All the Western fruits,
The Western fruits,
traditional Indian fruits,
the traditional Indian fruits,
a combination of two,
the combination of the two,
dried fruits,
dried fruits,
all those flavors,
Prabhupada's favorites,
something aesthetic mix,
and so many ecstatic mix.
one aesthetic mix,
One ecstatic mix.
condensed milk,
Condensed milk,
yogurt,
yogurt,
and 6 salty cups.
and 6 salty preps.
Because Westerners like salads.
Because Westerners like salads.
So we have the salty mix. We have the franchise out to different devotees.
So we have the salty mix, which we franchise out to different devotees.
Mexican mix and Mexican mix.
A Mexican mix.
Mexican mix or Mexican
A Mexican mix?
It's one of the most salty.
It's one of the most popular.
We have the Italian mix.
We have the Italian mix.
We have the Marai Siva mix.
We have the Morari Sevat mix.
And this year, a special secret ingredient.
This year a special secret ingredient
from the southeast.
from the southeast.
I've been thinking about this for the whole year.
I've been thinking about this for the whole year.
Its code name is
Its code name is
SW.
SW.
We have South Indian mix.
And then we have South Indian mix,
It's made by a South Indian.
which is made by a South Indian.
That's hot and spicy.
That's hot and spicy.
We have a North Indian mix,
We have a North Indian mix,
which is also hot but very hot.
which is also hot but less hot.
Then, the North Indian, I think, is ST.
The North Indian code is ST.
South Indian is SS.
South Indian SS.
One New Orleans, the Cajun mix.
The one from New Orleans, the Cajun mix.
So, try to use the opulence of America
We try to use the opulence of America
to offer a nice offering to Ormington.
to offer a nice offering to Gornitai.
We pray that since Radharani cooked at Banyati,
We pray that since Radharani cooked at Panihati,
she shall also cook this offering.
she will also cook these offerings.
This was the desire to please His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
So this was the desire to please His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you, Maharaj. This is wonderful. We do have a few other senior Prabhupada disciples who would like to speak for a few moments, but we added a new flavor to the festival last year, and we want to continue that as part of this Srila Prabhupada Lila Smarna, because the fact of the matter is, as was pointed out by Malati and others, that even the Prabhupada disciples that were in Atlanta when Prabhupada was here, like Chardeshna, Nardi, myself, Devanjana, Gandhidas, so many of us, will definitely at some point pass on. As Prabhupada said, I'm an old man, I can go at any moment, so any one of us can leave. So starting last year, we started requesting from the next generation of devotees to give some insights about your impression of this particular part of the festival, not the entire festival, but this particular part we call Srila Prabhupada Lila Smarna. Now in Atlanta we have a very special program we do every first Saturday of the month. It's called Srila Prabhupada Super Saturday. And we've been doing that successfully for 15 years. Srila Prabhupada ki! It's a very simple program. We have Harinam Sankirtan, because Prabhupada loved that. We come back to the temple, we have the arti for the deities, and then we have Srila Prabhupada's Guru Puja, and then we sit down and we watch a video of Srila Prabhupada's lecture, and then at the end, all the devotees who are interested can give their understanding of that lecture, share. So at this point, we'd like to hear, last year Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, he spoke on behalf of the entire next generation of devotees. We appreciate it very much. So if any one of you, second generation, meaning initiated by one of the current spiritual masters, or several who have also passed away, like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and Sodhidana Maharaj and Tamal Krishna, if you would like to share with us your impressions of what this is, meaning Srila Prabhupada Lila Smarna, and the importance of it. Let us know your expectations of us as senior Prabhupada disciples. We're just trying to share what our understandings are of our small or great amount of association with Prabhupada, but we'd love to hear from any one of you. And my request is that you come a little closer here so we can use the microphone. If anyone of the quote-unquote next generation devotees would like to share specifically your impressions of this activity, remembering Srila Prabhupada, if it is and how it is important to you and why we should continue, because as I said, once we pass on, is this important to continue as part of the Panayati Festival that all of you will have to keep going in the future? So if anyone would like to share some insights, it would be greatly appreciated, especially by senior Prabhupada disciples that are here. Who would like to share a few thoughts on that? Hope I didn't put you in the spot. Yes, Mandy. I'm not sure how far the microphone can come. Can you come over a little bit closer, please? Bring this microphone further. And give us your name and where you're from, please. You can leave it on the screen. Let her sit right here. You can stand if you like. You can look. Help with the microphone, please.
I am Varshana Dasi.
Bring the microphone.
And I'm from, originally from California, Los Angeles.
Haribo!
That's usually recommended. But I live in Gatesville, Florida right now. I just suddenly was thinking of what my guru was saying once. That the second generation, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, if we think, he made this point, I thought it was very interesting because sometimes we feel we're not Prabhupada's disciples because we're not initiated directly, and we've had some deviation and misunderstanding. But he said, if you think that because you're not initiated directly by Prabhupada, and therefore you're further away, then what is going to happen? In a few generations, everyone is further and further away. So that's why we need you to, this is so wonderful. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this where you all talk about Prabhupada. And we're just soaking in Prabhupada. And then, we see how you feel. And then we know how to feel. Sort of, we have to be trained like how bhakti works. So, because it doesn't translate to just love, ordinary love, temporary, self-serving love. So that's what I think. We don't want that to get watered down.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone else? That was just so special. Stand. No, please stand so they can see you. Stand. No, please. I'm your uncle. You have to do it. Come on. Stand up. Sit down. Give your name.
Hare Krishna, my name is Krishna Namanand Das from ISKCON of Central New Jersey. I don't have much experience and I don't have much qualification either. But I love Srila Prabhupada because he has spent all his energy for his entire life. He came to Western world to preach, to transform, and to give Krishna consciousness to everybody with a very simple heart, without looking at what their qualifications is. So the same thing we should distribute all generations. So we should take this seriously. That means we have to take understand the mood, but at the same time we have to understand the real purpose of this mission of Srila Prabhupada. That means we have to read Srila Prabhupada books and we have to hear from the great Vaishnavas who are sitting, Srila Prabhupada's disciples directly, who has direct experience. So, as Mataji said, unless we are trained by the direct disciples who have seen how Vaishnavas should follow, and by their practical day-to-day activities, so that others can imbibe that mood and give that Krishna consciousness to others. That is the main idea. So this is really nice, and we should continue this, not only this temple, but wherever Prabhupada has established and any new temples coming up, and we should try to gear towards how to please Srila Prabhupada and spiritual master, at the same time cooperate with everybody without looking at their qualifications or their mistakes, or they may have so many things, but ultimately we have to cooperate and please Srila Prabhupada and Guru. Without that, Nagati Kutopi. So that's what we have to understand. So in any organization we may have some mistakes and so we have to, even though they may mistake, we have to misgive, and so we have to understand the real purpose. So Srila Prabhupada is founder Acharya, and his mood, not only his mood, he is completely absorbed in Krishna all the time. Not even a minute without Krishna. So a lot of devotees talk, but we are not at that quality. We are not at Prabhupada level. So some devotees may say, just take the Prabhupada's mood, but it's not just mood. We have to really understand how Srila Prabhupada has behaved and how he has followed his spiritual master's order, and we are not even to that level, not even I don't know. It's very hard to see, and so that is the mood. And Prabhupada always thought himself trying to become a servant. He never said he is a founder Acharya, or he never said I am the greatest Vaishnava or anything. So that's how the previous Acharyas has established the etiquette, Narottam Das Thakur or any of our Acharyas. So that is the mood we need to cultivate, but rather than looking at others' faults and trying to break apart or so many things. So that's what we have to really seriously think and understand Srila Prabhupada's mood, and try to take this up very seriously and bring more people into Krishna consciousness. We are small, only after Prabhupada established 100 temples, how many more we established? Very less compared to what Srila Prabhupada has done. So that means we have a lot much to do, especially in the Western world and so many other countries where we don't have much presence. So it means everybody has to take up this more seriously. Then only we can. And then obviously with Vaishnavas and Sadhus association, and by the guidance of the previous direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada, because they know, they have been trained by Srila Prabhupada. So when we take the training from them, then we know how to do. This is what Adav Guru Ashram means. Srila Prabhupada, that's how when he wakes up, how daily, 24 hours of the day, how he is using the time in Krishna service. Every minute counts. So that kind of consciousness we have to cultivate, by the training of the current spiritual master, direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.
One more? Yes, we come.
Hare Krishna. Is it okay if I hold? I always like to take the opportunity when the youth are asked to speak to express appreciation for what it is that...
Everyone please be quiet so we can hear. Close that door here.
What it is that everyone has done to provide this kind of experience for people who are seeking something in their spiritual life. My base. What I think about this sharing remembrances of Srila Prabhupada from the senior Prabhupada disciples, I think that it's our tendency to want to hear something amazing that someone has done. And in the material world, people glorify people who make some nice kitchen appliance or some electronic device, and they like to talk about these things. And it's our tendency to talk about great people like this. And I remember hearing about I saw an article, I think it was in the Fortune 500 magazine, where it was talking about 50 great personalities who have accomplished something, and they're over 50 or over 65. And in that 50, Srila Prabhupada was in there, which I thought was he was number 3? Number 2.
It was 10 personalities over the age of 60.
In the article, it shows 10 personalities that accomplished something important after the age of 60, and Prabhupada was number 2.
So I was thinking about how it is that these personalities are accomplishing these things, and many times when someone accomplishes something great, they've stepped on a lot of people's toes, or they've done it in these various ways, and you lose a sense of what their personality was, what the small interactions with other people, the relationships, and how they achieve that step by step. And I really appreciate when we get to have these moments where you share these things, these monumental moments that Srila Prabhupada made in our movement, but you share the little things, the gestures, the glances, the words, the small appreciations, because all of that is what really makes an impression in the heart. And those impressions in the heart are what's going to continue from generation to generation. Not so much the buildings and the structures and things like that. So I really appreciate each time each one of you shares something that I'm sure is just the most profound thing in your lives with us in our coming to this. Thank you.
Haribo! So, anyone more? Someone else? Yes, please. Please.
Hare Krishna. I'm Guru-gaurango from Oxford, Tennessee. Thank you for this nice opportunity to talk about in front of the senior group of disciples. Two things I would like to say here. One thing is, as these senior direct disciples of Prabhupada never felt that Prabhupada will be leaving the planet, so it is very hard for us to believe that they will ever leave the planet. They are always with us, and they will always be with us all the time. Thank you all for the nice, we were not even born, many of us were not even born when Prabhupada was there, and these great disciples had created a house, which we are all now relishing, the pleasures. And the second thing I would like to say, Prabhupada has, definitely Prabhupada has, whatever Prabhupada was able to do, he had great appreciation for these disciples, and without these disciples, it won't have been possible for all of us to have this spiritual environment for us and for our families. So we thank you all, these disciples, from our heart for what they have done for us. Thank you. Hare
And I was mentioning earlier that Prabhupada went first to Miami. I mentioned Suresh Prabhu, he was there, and he had a choice to go to Atlanta, and he went to Miami, so he's going to maybe share that wonderful pastime with us. Don't forget that.
No, I'm not going to share that. I'm going to share something as a follow-up to what Prabhuji just said. Now Prabhu, you just expressed that you can hardly imagine what the world's going to be like when the last Prabhupada disciple leaves the planet, right? I don't want to hear you say that ever again. Don't you ever dare say that, because please understand that it's everybody's responsibility. Everybody's responsibility to be totally absorbed in Prabhupada's life, teachings, mood, and mission. That's how this Hare Krishna movement is going to go on. Please. It wasn't just our responsibility to do that, and now you can't imagine what it's going to be like when all of us, follow Prabhupada out of this world. No, it's everybody's responsibility to do that. And that's how Prabhupada's legacy will not only be maintained, it would be increased unlimitedly. Please take it to heart. We are all Prabhupada Anugas. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Thank you so much, Rudy. So we also have down from the hills, from the foreign land of Murari, another Atlanta devotee who has some insight he can share, hopefully about the 40th anniversary of Guru-gaurango, and then whatever else we can share with us.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see everyone today. Hare Krishna. Everyone having a nice time? We just arrived shortly, not too long ago, and we brought with us some very beautiful items from Murari, some vegetables and some milk products which are situated in this room next door. So when you get ready to leave, don't forget to check those tables. There's beets and carrots and breads and all kinds of wonderful things. I was thinking, you can see Guru-gaurango, statement. Yes, so we are working very hard at Murari to make a nice self-sufficient community based on the concept of what Srila Prabhupada wanted was a Vrindavan village. Very simple life, very simple life. No complications, and everyone lives very peacefully. They have plenty of time for chanting the holy names. And you grow a few vegetables, and you milk a cow or two, and you have everything you need in your life. So that means that gives you plenty of time to concentrate on the higher issues, or the deeper issues, let's say. So I was thinking about the situation. If Srila Prabhupada were here today, what question might you pose to him today, as we maybe didn't propose to him several years ago? I have my question, several questions. I have actually great lamentations that I didn't ask the questions that I could have asked at the time. But one time I was, and what brought this to mind was one time in Chicago, I was in Prabhupada's room and he was taking prasadam, and I wanted to ask him a question. And my tongue just would not work. Nothing would come out of my mouth. And so Prabhupada, sitting there taking prasadam, he looked up at me, and I couldn't say anything. My tongue just wouldn't work. So Srila Prabhupada kept taking prasadam, so instead I just busied myself doing things in the room. I just straightened the cloth here and there, straightened the cushions, and straightened like I was supposed to be doing that. And it was actually a distraction, you know, from the fact that here I have literally the Supreme Personality of Godhead's representatives sitting in front of me taking prasadam, and I can ask him any question that I want to ask. And what did I do? I couldn't make anything come out of my mouth. And all I did was busy myself with the trivial matters of straightening the room. So it's just like a microcosm of our life, isn't it? It's like we have these questions that we'd like to raise to Krishna. We'd like to ask these questions to Krishna. But we busy ourselves with so many things in our lives that we don't ever get to the final point of asking these questions. So I ask you to think about that, and what question would you ask Prabhupada today if you had the opportunity to ask him directly? Hare Krishna. And I hope he is very pleased, and I'm sure he is very pleased with everyone's efforts to individually prosecute their sadhana and collectively try to push forward this movement in every nice way. So very grateful to see all my godbrothers and sisters here. I'm glad to see that they're still alive. Many of them have passed away, but there's still quite a few. And I'm very much appreciative of the fact that they're still alive. And we can actually take advantage of their association. As we take advantage of your association too. This is a two-way street. Just like Sareshwar Prabhu, my old friend, was saying. This is a sampradaic flow. It comes, Krishna is the ultimate and the first spiritual master. And he is sending this transcendental knowledge in a sampradaic flow into our hearts. And our contact with Krishna and this sampradaic flow happened to be with divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. And so because of that, we have the utmost and incredible dedication to do something for him in this world. So that should transfer very nicely into the hearts of everyone coming. That same flow, that sweetness coming from Krishna, ultimately, is coming into the heart of every living entity. And that should be embraced. We are all basically in the same family. Hare Krishna.
So didn't know so much about the movement or anything, and then we had a conversation. He had a place in North Carolina, and he was saying, should I go to my place in North Carolina or stay here? And we convinced him to stay. But it was like immediately, he was just a new devotee, and he immediately understood book distribution better than the rest of us. And there was no problem in our mind. He was in charge of book distribution from the very beginning. He was the one who understood where to go. He was the driving force behind the success of the book distribution in Atlanta. He was empowered by Krishna sending.
Haribo! Krishna gave me special mercy. He did. Because what happened, I was on my way to India. I came to Atlanta to say farewell to friends and family, and I was actually on my way to India to try to find my guru. That was my desire. That was my purpose for being in Atlanta. So I'm downtown and I hear ching, 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 ching. I said, what's that? And the devotees were on the street. And I met them. Jai Sena Prabhu was so sweet. And I told him, I said, I'm on my way to India to find my guru. He says, Prabhu, guess what? You're in India. You found your guru. Come back to the temple with us. And I did. And it was wonderful. And it was this beautiful picture of Srila Prabhupada. And the devotees asked me to sit down right here. And it was right under Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. And I was told by Balavanta Prabhu that if you want to make your life successful, bring devotees to Prabhupada's lotus feet and have them surrender and become his disciples.
Who have not had the great fortune of meeting Srila Prabhupada. I often try to think of what Srila Prabhupada would want or do. How was he? How did he walk? Was he humorous? What kind of morality, ethics did he have? So there's a lot of questions that I have had about Srila Prabhupada because I have never met him. Even when I read his books, I see the great depthness in philosophy. But as I grow up and I hear the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, it actually makes me realize that Srila Prabhupada was above and beyond what I could ever think of as someone who was a spiritual teacher. And that I do by having one-to-one dialogues with Srila Prabhupada disciples, asking them questions. Recently in our North American Temple Presidents meeting, they started the meetings by talking about Srila Prabhupada. And I remember that those things that was said about Srila Prabhupada I could never forget. Beautiful stories by Kuladri Prabhu, Bhattinarayan Prabhu, Prabhupada Swami. It was just really sweet things that Prabhupada was actually a complete spiritual leader. And it is our great fortune that Srila Prabhupada has left so many wonderful disciples. And every day when I see Prabhupada disciples, I actually feel that, there's remnants of Prabhupada, not just in his books, but also in a living person, because I see a lot of Srila Prabhupada disciples carry that purity, that desire to spread, that burning sensation of spreading Krishna consciousness. And they're very, very fixed up. And for me, that was one of the most inspiring things about Srila Prabhupada disciples. And I've always requested the devotees in Atlanta that we are very fortunate in ISKCON that we have so many disciples of Prabhupada who are still with us. And we should not waste any time. And rather, we should try to see how we can get close to them and hear more about the glories of Prabhupada and try to understand who Srila Prabhupada really was. So Yadubar Prabhu has made these beautiful videos for me. I mean, I could sit there and watch for hours and hours because it really, really gives you an insight into Srila Prabhupada. So I wanted to thank Balabhadra Prabhu, who's been doing this for so many years. I know I will never be able to come up to this because it is something that Balabhadra Prabhu brings out in all the disciples of Prabhupada. And we would like to carry this on as many years as we possibly can till the very last disciple of Prabhupada, and then carry on, as Sureshwar Prabhu was saying. But we should not waste this very valuable time that we have with them. Because sometimes we take things for granted, and once we don't have them, then we really have to figure out other ways to somehow maintain and preserve the beautiful legacy they leave behind that they have gotten from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai! So